What's your notes, or I'd like to share something. Well, first I'd like to say it's an honor to be here on this day. I guess I've lived through a bunch of Hilulas of Moshe Rabbenu, but I've never been connected to Moshe Rabbenu before in the Bechina of Melch Kush and from his connection to Eretz Cham. And so it's a big zchut to be in a place where Eretz Cham kind of rests in Eretz Yisrael the way the Shekhinah rests on a sukkah. So it's a big zchut to be here on the Hilul of Moshe Rabbeinu. I've been connected lately. I don't know why, though I'm sure everything will be revealed at some point. But I've been really connected to the Mem. And I guess it's the theme for Moshe's Hilula, that the Mem, which represents the womb and 40 days of, was it when the embryo forms? This is a place that evokes the name, the Rechem, and Smaram is to Rachamim, and the Shem Havaya that Moshe Rabbeinu was so connected to. And something that's been coming up for me is something that seems like a contradiction that I'm learning isn't, which is that the importance of the Gevul when you have the Rachem, where you think that Rachamim is always being mitaken Gevura, that it's maybe even not the opposite of Gevura, but you don't think of Gevura when you think of Rachamim. But when a child is in the womb, when a child's in the Rechem, the uterine wall, the real Gevul, the border around the womb, actually gets stronger. And it's from the uterine wall, it's from that Gevul, the Gevura, the Bechina of Gevura, where the Shefa, a lot of the nutrients for the new embryo actually comes from. So something related to that thought, just that when we have more Rachamim, when we have something that is more in the middle of the Eitz Chaim, in the middle of our tree of the Sfirot and Tiferet, where we have Rachamim and Shem Havaya and Moshe Rabbeinu, we have a very healthy Gevul. We have all our Torah and Mitzvot and Mishpatim, Besod Melchot Tzedek and Mishpat. And I saw something very interesting when I was reading Chokli Yisrael the other day in Mishnah in Menachot, talking about the meal, those different offerings, and especially the meal offerings in the Beis Mikdash. And here it is. So in Mishnah Menachot, Perek Hey, Pasuk Chet, it says, Uma bein machavat v'marcheshet, ela shehamachet yesh la kisui, divrei Rabbi Yossi Haglili. And then Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel Omer, Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel says, Marcheshet amuka umaseha rochshin. So we have two different pans in the meal offering in the Beit HaMikdash. There's the machavat and the marcheshet. And the machavat is shallow. Whatever's cooked in there is hard, that they say in this Mishnah, and it doesn't have a cover. But it says shaham mercheshet yesh la kisui. So I was reading this, and some interesting things came up, and this is all related to the Gevul and Rechem. Besides that, we have a certain switch of otiot, where Reish and Lamed can sometimes be switched out, and we have the same word, more or less. And here we have a Rechem, here being the Bechina of Marcheshet, and I'll explain that in a second, but what's cooked in is Lechem. So we have Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel saying a Marcheshet, what's the difference? He says that it's, as the translation from my Chokli Yisrael says, that Marcheshet is a deep pot, and that's what's prepared in it is spongy, like it's soft. It can wiggle or something because it's it's deep and it has a cover, so it's not all hard. It retains some moisture. This, to me, I thought is like the child in the womb. It has a strong gvul, it's covered, and it's still forming, it's still soft. We also have, looking at the word marcheshet, that is described as amuka umasea rochshim, so it's deep, and it's what's in it is soft, rochshim. So we have the word rochesh already in the word marcheshet. Marcheshet, we can also separate the letters and have rachash or lachash, which actually mean more or less the same things, whisper. When we separate the words melacheshet from the taf, we have chashmal rearranged. So when we have this bechina of the chashmal, and we say that yesh la kisui, it has a kisui, as a cover. See this as a romez to the kisei kavod. And this is a deep pot, but is it deep going lower than the machavat? Or is it deep because it goes higher than where the machavat goes to? So maybe we're saying that it goes to a high place, and to have a cover, it reaches up to the kisei kavod. Also on lachash and maseha, and saying chashmal, we know that chashmal is also in the bechina of Shema Yisrael. And one way to know that is that we have the first part of the Shema is the reisha is mal, it's out loud, and the seifa, the second part, is chash. We say it quietly, we whisper it. So kiso is connected the reisha of the Shema, and rochshim that we say that describes the meracheshet, the soft part, that's something soft, is rachash, lachash, it's quiet, chash, it's the second part of the Shema, it's actually quiet. So, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. So we have the description of amuk of Maseh Rochshim. Again, what we saw with the borders of it and the cover and what's inside it being soft, and the bechina of rechem and lechem, that we could say that this is like the womb. Another word for womb besides rechem is baten, which made me think of a pasuk in Yirmiyahu that's beterem matzorecha bebaten yedeticha ubeterem tetze merechem hikdashticha. So I knew you before I formed you in the womb, and before you came out of the womb, I sanctified you. This pasuk also comes up in Masechet Yuma, Daf Ayin Beis Amud Beis, where there's a woman fasting on Yom Kippur, and we say, remind her that it's Yom Kippur, and she eats, and there's it's allowed, but it's kind of a din on her. And then there's another woman who's pregnant and fasting on Yom Kippur, and they whisper, chash, into her ear, it's Yom Kippur, and she doesn't eat. And it says, well, who came out of her was Rabbi Yochanan. So it was a bracha for her. Again, we have these aspects of the quiet, the chash, and the womb. It says l'chushola ve'ilchisha, right? Whisper to her, and she listened. So this quality of the meracheshet, that's amuk, it has the gavul, like the womb, like I've already said, and I'm kind of losing it in my notes here. But and another difference between that and the machavas is that we say in the machavas, again, is the shallow pan, that's tsafa umasea kashim. So what comes out of it is hard. And this made me think of a klipa. And what would be a connection between the machavat and klipot and meracheshet and a child is like we saw, like we've seen before, that Well, actually, I'll just keep it there. Those are some thoughts on that.
חזק וברוך.